everybody, this is Julie Hall from Women Unlimited and welcome to Women Unlimited TV. Today with me I've got the lovely Marianne Cantwell. Hi Marianne.
Julie.
Marianne has been a writer for Women Unlimited for, I don't know, a couple of years now? Quite a while. Yeah, and she runs a website called Free Range Human. So the web address, Marianne, for those that are listening?
My blog was free-range-humans.com, but as you'll find out in a moment, there's a new website as well. So that's where you see the blog.
So Marianne has just written a brilliant new book called Be a Free Range Human. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about some of the concepts that she talks about in her book and also giving you an idea about where you can find out more information about that later. So what's the web address for your... Let's start out, Marianne, by just asking, what's the web address for your book?
It's beafreerangehuman.com. No hyphens, which
Perfect.
is great, as we know. So beafreerangehuman.com, which is also the book title, luckily. I've also been working with several hundreds of people to help them do the exercises we've done in the book. So it's tested out stuff as well.
Great. So why don't we start by actually just talking about what you do?
What do I do?
What do you do?
If we go from the lifestyle element, what I do is spend a lot of time traveling. So last time we spoke, Julie, as you know, I was in Bali, and that was, 2 months ago now, I think. And I live and work in a whole bunch of different countries every year, not because I have business there, but because my business lives in my laptop, and my laptop is very portable. So because at the moment I enjoy travel, I pick up my laptop, decide where I want to be that month, and I essentially hunker down there and work my business from there.
Nice life.
I'm back in London cafes, right? It's not just about traveling for me. It's just something I really enjoy now. It's about that flexibility of going, I don't have to be in a home office. I don't have to be in a real office. I can set my own hours, work when I want, and do what I love. And that's my lifestyle answer to that question.
Brilliant. But your background was not, you weren't always a traveller, were you? You came from a corporate background. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's interesting you say I wasn't always a traveller, because I was one of those people. I had that good job, the one everyone says, you must feel so lucky, but it's those sort of job where you actually feel like you're not lucky at all because you don't want to be there, and you can't think of anything worse than going into the office every day. And that was me for years. And all I could think about was what my next vacation would be. So I was the one that had the cubicle and had the pictures of exotic destinations up. I was the one who always had the Google page up for the next holiday, kind of lurking in the background. And so I worked in media, I worked for Disney and other companies. I made a bit of a change, became a sort of marketing and management consultant in the city, did that for a while, rose up the ranks, and in the end basically decided that I didn't really want to spend the rest of my life as one of those people who always look forward to the next vacation. It's detriment of the 40-something weeks a year that we have in between. So I made my mind, I was going to break free. I was going to get paid to do something I actually loved to do, actually brought me alive. And I was going to turn my life into basically an experiment of what would happen if you didn't have to live and work in one place. And that's pretty much what I've done so far.
Amazing. So when you first started out, did you have a plan? Did you know what you were going to do? Had you decided what this passion was that you were going to follow?
Yes, and it was completely not what I'm doing now.
Often the way, isn't it?
I can't remember. So I decided, I made one of those, I'm a total control freak, which I'm sure a lot of people can associate with. So I was the one who sat down with the plan. I was like, none of this faffing around for me. I'm going to sort this one out. So I sat there with my marketing consultant head on. I'd worked for some of the biggest companies in the world doing this stuff. I'm like, I know this stuff. No worries. So I wrote my plan. Obviously, that didn't work out. So I wrote the plan out and decided I'm going to go part-time. Then I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to build up my client base. This is a clever niche to go for. So I was going to run 2 separate businesses, both in what I thought were good niches. I did it all right.
I was going to say, sounds perfect to me.
Myself looking back. Except, of course, everything started going a little bit wrong. So I think the first thing that a lot of business books forget about, that I've really tried to put into mine, is the human element. So the fact that you can sit there and have the best laid plans, but then your real life gets in the way. And that's the element I don't think we're really taught to take care of. And that's, I really look at it in the book. So for me, what got in the way was that I was about to go part-time for this very clever, let's build up my business on the side thing. And I basically said, I can't handle this job anymore. I was working 18-hour days in the city for a boss who didn't believe that people actually got ill, that it was just in the mind, and that sleep was optional. So I was like, I'm out. And I quit my job. And my business wasn't yet built up. It was half built up. Second thing that happened was a financial crash, which is a great time to quit your city job. So as I left, our office was behind Lehman Brothers in the city, and that was when everyone else was trundling out with their boxes, and I was leaving voluntarily, which some people might think was crazy. But what I discovered was that the reality of what happened and what the journey I went on, I think was better than the plan I had. And reason, because I think we're told a lot that it's a dangerous time to start a business. This is a bad time. The economy is not right. And I think, well, I'm actually really glad that I started out in a financial crash, because if you can build up a successful business or two in a financial crash, you're not riding some trend that can be pulled away from you. You actually know how to build a business. So
totally
when I
agree.
I'm sure you saw this. I saw these other businesses crashing, and I was like, I had never had the opportunity of the boom. So all the things that they were saying about how bad it was, I was like, this is normal. This is fine. Here, right? And so I felt like I had a really unfair advantage as a newbie in a crowded market with no experience of running my own business. I was like, I have a huge advantage because these guys are so used to doing things the old way.
I was going to say that kind of naivety of starting a business in that kind of environment with no experience allows you to really open yourself up to lots of things that you probably wouldn't do otherwise.
You can't, there's no other option, right?
Exactly.
You'll never fail.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And by the way, the businesses I started, just in case anyone's curious, I started up a few different things. Firstly, I made cupcakes. I made vegan cupcakes, which was fun, but I realized I didn't actually like having to make cupcakes every day, which is a great discovery. At the same time, I started two other things. I started a portfolio career to explore a few different areas. That was one of them. That was fun, not what I wanted to do. The other thing I started up was a little marketing consultancy, which had been my background, and that paid the bills very well for the first 6 to 8 months. And I was really glad I started that up. But ultimately, working again for organizations wasn't my thing. At the same time, I started up a career coaching consultancy, writing CVs and helping people get jobs, which was the thing that started taking off. Problem was, Julie, I don't really like jobs. I was in there helping people get them. And I was at that stage, and I think a lot of people watching might recognize this. I was at this stage where I had a business that was doing well, could really take off. It was, I was getting quoted in places, I was in the papers, all that stuff was happening, and I didn't believe anymore what I was doing. Not the quality. I was like, I was great helping people nail interviews or whatever, but I didn't care. And I started, that bit where you're getting a client and you're like, damn, I'm getting a
Totally. I mean, I was in the same place with my web design business, but I think the thing was that you just fundamentally didn't believe that people should be employed.
I didn't believe that it was the only option.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing, Julie. I found that as people were coming to me, I wanted to suggest things other than employment to them.
Yeah.
Because I was realizing this was the best lifestyle I'd created. I was, working in my local park in the summer. I just really, really loved it. And I didn't find the business building aspect that difficult. I thought that was the fun bit. So I kept wanting to suggest it to them, but I thought, it's not appropriate. But then people started asking me, how did you quit your job? They'd come to me for advice to get another job, and they'd be like, how did you get out? How did that work? And so in the end, I thought, well, I'll start a blog. I started a little blog on blogger.com, and it was called Free Range Humans. And that blog became more popular than my official business. So I remember the first time it happened, I was out at some function, I can't remember where, at the South Bank Centre in London or something, and someone, I don't know how she knew who I was, walked up and said, hey, you're the Free Range Humans blogger. And I was like, it's not even a blogging function. I don't know who you are. And at that point, I started thinking, okay, that hasn't happened to me in any other area, and it happened a few times. I'm like, something's happening here, and I made a choice to firstly, I transferred most of my work from my old career coaching brand to Free Range Humans. So I did a few experiments, a few like projects saying, hey, we're running this thing on this, and I realized that these were the people I wanted to work with.
Yeah.
So the hard thing, and I killed my other business. I decided I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want to sell it. I actually just wanted it out of the way so I'd have the headspace to move forward with Free Range Humans. I found that a bunch of my old lists stayed with me, and a lot of them, it wasn't for them, and that was fine. But what happened was, once I went 100% into Free Range Humans, that grew at a rate that I hadn't seen anything else do before. Because it was the first thing that I'd done that I was like, not only am I good at this, but I believe in this like so passionately that you can feel it when you hit my blog. And that's what I do now.
So how long have you been running the site for?
That's a really good question. A couple of years, 3 years maybe. Actually, I'm not too sure because it started out so slowly.
Yeah.
Because it's a side project. I'm like, it's been more than that as a side project. Full time, it's been maybe 3 years now, I think. It had its build up life before.
So how do you earn your living? How do you make your money?
It's Free Range Humans 100%. And that means that I run online courses. So, for example, I ran something called the Free Range Festival for the first time the other month. I was in Bali, then Bangkok, and then California while it was running. And it didn't matter where it was because it was a global virtual festival online. People paid to come in. We had an awesome community, some really fabulous guest speakers, all of this stuff going on. And that was what I did that month. And the other times I'll run live courses with smaller groups online. So we'll have a community often. We'll hop on the phone once a week. We'll do web chats and we'll go through course materials. And if another option of what I do is courses that you can download yourself from my website. So when people sign up for the email list on the blog, for example, they'll see my main, most popular course come up as an option to buy. So that is something that sort of ties into the mix. What I don't do is I don't go and run live face-to-face courses. And I actually made a personal choice not to do one-to-one coaching. Not because I don't believe in that. I think it's really powerful because I'm a little bit crappy at it. So I decided to go honest with that. I ditched my. I always tell people now in the book that the most dangerous thing is doing your second best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Paid for it. I didn't get complaints.
Yeah.
Wasn't my thing. My thing is groups. So I only do one-to-one coaching for grads of mine who've gone through courses and who really want to work with me and know what they're getting into.
Well, it's quite an interesting point actually, because in one of my courses, one of the things I talk about is what's your core competence, which is like marketing. It's like a consultancy term, and many people would look at Women Unlimited and think it might be training or it might be building a community. But actually, my core competence, the thing that I'm best at, that I can't outsource to anybody else, is our marketing.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the obvious thing, and it's really important that you understand the bit that makes your business special, and just really focus on that and bring other people in to do the other bits.
I'm so passionate about that, Julie. I think in the book, as there's a section called Spot Your Superpowers, and in there I don't use core competence. I really like that term now. I might steal it. I'll reference you. No, but I really like that term because there's something I think that happens when we are the main thing in our business. So if you look to a normal business with lots of staff and whatever else, and you look at them, and if they said, well, we have a main asset, we're a little bit embarrassed about it, so we're going to hide it away, that would be nuts, right? Yeah. You do not hide your main asset. Because we're told to, squish your personality down, fit in, don't stand out. As individuals, it's not, most of us would think it's not okay to say, I am great at this. But if you're not going to say that, then what have you got? What are you selling? So I'm sure you found this, Julie, that when you do the thing that you really love, that's when you come alive. So,
absolutely.
I think, again, that's the stuff a lot of business books don't talk about. It's not just a business decision. It's not just a personal decision. Doing something that brings you alive is your core competence, and that is the smartest business decision you can make.
Yeah, well, there's a kind of another interesting angle on that, is because so many people are being told to follow their passion these days. And something I read recently was talking about, actually, you don't need to just be passionate about the subject. You need to be passionate about what you're doing within the business. So in your example, obviously the passionate piece for you is that group coaching. It's engaging with your community and helping them to learn and grow together. That's what really drives you. And it's the topic is you're equally passionate about, but if you didn't have that other piece, you wouldn't have the success that you do.
I read a blog post, I think it's called How to Say F You to Finding Your Passions.
Yeah,
just says what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we talk about passion? Why do we think that because we are happy, I don't know, we're passionate about
cupcakes,
dogs, that if we run any dog-related business, we'll be happy? I'm like, if you hate organising and your dog-related business is about organising, you'll be dreadfully unhappy.
Miserable.
Oh, I love that you bring up the same point. It's really big on that.
There's a few things that really stood out for me in the book that I'd just like to explore a little bit further. One of those is the you don't need an original idea. And which kind of goes along with the other bit, which is the oodles of experience myth. So can we talk about that a little bit? What does that mean, and how does that manifest itself?
That these, I think, are really relevant to people who are just starting out or looking to change what they do in any way. And I think they're two big myths I think are perpetuated by watching too much Dragon's Den. I call it the Dragon's Den. Nothing against Dragon's Den, but I call it the Dragon's Den myth because most people's view of what a successful business is comes from that sort of paradigm. And what I like to show to people is what works in most cases is not the stuff that makes it on TV.
Yeah.
The stuff that makes it on TV because it's unusual, not because it's what works. So for every world-changing widget, you have several thousand highly successful image consultants. You don't think that you need an original idea. I think the smarter thing is to take an idea that either you've seen, you're like, I want to do that, or that you've come up with by combining all those things that you want to do that bring you alive and coming up with your own new thing. Take that idea and look at how to make it your own. It doesn't mean, like, there's something in the book I call the 1%, 100% difference. And what that means is, when you're moving into a new field, I think the normal thing to do is you pull up a new tab on your browser and you start Googling competitors. Yeah. And you start going, oh, but I can't launch because they're so much better than me, right? They've got the experience. Look at that little info page they've got going. And you get really downhearted. And what I'd say is, wait a second. Even though they have all this experience and all that, and even if you find someone who's launched the exact business you think you want to launch, that isn't going to take 100% of the clients or customers available in that space. What matters isn't that how it looks on the surface. What matters is that you attract a certain sub niche of person that only wants to work with or buy from you. And to do that, I say what you need is a 1% difference, not 100% difference. So what if it didn't matter that someone targeted women aged 30 to 45 in Surrey doing web design for people, passionate businesses, or something like that? What if that didn't matter? What if you were different to that person in some way? So the way you can look at that is to ask yourself, if I was handed that person's business tomorrow, would I do things 100% the same? Would I change? What would I not like about it? And sit with that, because I think when we go in with this idea that that person has all the answers, we hide away the things that we don't like about them. And an example to bring this to life is I'm a huge fan of Cafe Nero. It's like the only chain coffee place I like. And one of the reasons I choose them above any other coffee chain is that when you go in, aside from having great coffee and comfy seating, they have free water. They have every Cafe Nero you walk into, you'll notice this from now on, you'll see 2 jugs of water and a pile of cups. It's never empty, it's always there. And as someone who loves my water, that has got my loyalty. 1% difference. That's what we're talking about. What is it about your niche, about you, that others haven't noticed? others don't care about. I mean, Starbucks clearly is not within their model or their niche to provide free water. So it's not a criticism of them that they haven't. It's just not their thing. Nero, you could think, is almost identical to Starbucks in lots of ways. That's one of their differences. What's your difference from those competitors that look almost the same? Because the final line I say on this is, you don't need 100% of your niche. You need 100% of the person who wants to buy from you.
I like that a lot.
I'm so passionate about that. And when these guys, I have this thing, you go to startup meetings with all these guys that talk about, talking acronyms half the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you even know who you're selling to? Do these people give about you? Really, I think, as women, we're actually better at this stuff. Listen to what people want. Listen to what you want to provide. Marry them together and dare to do things a little bit differently rather than going, I'm going to find a totally different idea. If someone else has an idea and they're doing well, brilliant. They've just broken the ground for the sort of thing you want to do.
Now, I think one of the things that's really interesting about you, Marianne, is that you actually test a lot of your ideas before you take them to market, which obviously gives you a real advantage because it means that you're not going to spend a lot of time and effort on something that's not going to be what your market wants versus actually creating the exact right product. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. I think that what's really interesting about technology available to us these days is that we are able to reach large amounts of people at once, and we're able to interact with people before they want to buy from us. So, I don't do networking meetings, not because I have anything against them. It's just kind of not really my thing with location independence and all that. And, I don't do, sales phone calls with anyone. If someone wants my stuff, they'll buy my stuff, or they can go think about it, whatever. But what I do is I spend a lot of time putting out really great content for people. So that's my main marketing tool is content, which is getting more and more popular these days for very good reason. What that allows you to do, though, is not just attract the right people to you, but test out what's going to work with those people. So, for example, I will send out an email to my email list every Friday. It's my Friday love letter, and it is the thing I put the most time into. It's, I don't post on the blog that often. I post my Friday love letter religiously every week. And in that, I track open rates. I look at click rates. I split test. And these are not on things I'm selling. These are just on topics I do during the week. So suddenly I can see how interesting was this topic to most of my people. I have a really responsive email list now. I feel really lucky. I have an amazing tribe. People reply all the time. The Facebook fan page, it's Facebook/Free Range Humans, is active. And when I have a question about something, for example, if I'm like, I think of doing this, I'm not too sure, I'll post something on the fan page. And luckily, because I have a market research background, I know enough that what you don't do is you don't post a question like, would you like a course on this? Or how much do you pay? Because your data, I'm not even going to why in a geeky way, but your data's going to be absolutely screwed. Don't do that. Instead, I'll raise a topic around that area. So if I'm thinking of launching a course on, how to find great shoes, let's just say, I ask a question about, have you been shoe shopping lately? What do you think of what's out there? Or something like that. I ask around that. Don't do shoe-based courses, but you never... And that's really interesting. And then when you start realizing that your content and your social media interaction can actually give you a lot of information, that's when you start going, wait a sec, I had 50 responses to that shoe topic and I'm not running anything about shoes. How crazy is that? What if I ran something about that? So that's a really basic thing anyone can do if you have any social media presence and any list loyalty, which you should get if you have good content. The second thing I do is overt testing. So that would be... there's three things. The second thing I do is sort of overt questioning. So if I know, right, I'm going to launch that shoe course, right? But I want to know exactly what it's going to be about. I don't make the assumption myself that I know what it should be about. I know I have assumptions. I'm like, I think it'd be interesting to do this or this, but I'm going to ask my people first. So I ask them a question like, hey, we're doing something on this topic. What is it about this area that you most want to know about? Hit reply. Because that's a big list now. I don't say hit reply because then I can't read my email for days. So it's more like, go to this Google survey and tell me now.
Yeah.
One question. question. I'm like, one clean question.
Yeah.
Name a clean question. That's it. I don't want anything else. I want you to know what you're up to and what you need to know. That forms the basis of my courses. So suddenly we've gone from guessing what people want to tell you the topic, to getting to tell you what they want in it. I use that for my marketing. I then look at the problem they've told me about, and I then integrate it when I launch the course. And it gets even more complicated after that, but basically I'll test a course. I never put a passive product out online unless I've run it live several times. The amount of passive products I have out is low, and that's because I have a high threshold of success before I'll allow it to do its thing. Some products work better, with people. I look at for example, if I run a course and I have to answer so many questions or hold people's hands a lot, I'm like, that is not a course appropriate for a passive product.
Yeah.
It's one where it's like people are like, wow, this is awesome. It's changing my life. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I'm like, really?
Perfect. Yeah.
So there's so much more I could talk about. I won't go into it, but I just say you don't need to have complex tools or big algorithms to do some really smart testing. The key principles are don't assume that you know what everyone will want. Ask them about a topic. Never ask them if they want a particular product or if they want a particular price point. The feedback on that is close to useless because people will say they want is different to what they'll do. The only piece of feedback that's useful is people's answers about how they're feeling about something. So ask that, compile it in a geeky Excel sheet. I categorize stuff. I have my colors. I'm like, hey, there's 5 themes here, and here's what they say. And you're not guessing. You have a guaranteed market straight away.
How frequently do you put these kinds of questions out to your market?
I'm very disorganized.
Me too, sister.
I like to tell people that because I'm like, it's okay. It honestly depends on what I'm doing and what I want to do. So I think I told you last time we spoke, I had the idea for the Free Range Festival, which is the last major course I ran. And I had that and announced it to my list within a week of having the idea. So it suddenly went from idea to announcement, and then the refining process happened when people sort of said what they wanted, blah, 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 and I did that thing around it. So it all kind of works together. When I wrote the book, there were a lot of questions going out. That was, in my acknowledgements, I acknowledge everyone in my tribe and on the Facebook page, because every few days they'd get a new question on the Facebook page kind of going, guys, what do you think of this? Chiming in on the chapters. So it's a
brilliant.
Tested. There were some chapters I was agonizing about. I'm like, I know I can teach this in person. How's this work as a chapter? So I get people in from the tribe. I'm like, I want you to read this. I want you to apply. I want you to tell me what other questions you have at the end of this. And we rewrite it and rewrite it. So the book's tested as well.
Well, and what's really brilliant about that is that what you're delivering is what your audience wants. I've not actually heard of anybody doing such a collaborative kind of book before. I think that's quite a unique process, but a really powerful one.
And it's what we can all do, right? Because we now have tribes and we now have access to people who want to give input. And people do, by the way. People love giving input, so don't hold back from asking.
Well, that kind of brings me on to another question, which is around building community, because I think that's one of your key strengths. It's one of the things that you've done incredibly well with Free Range Humans. What would you recommend for someone that has an existing brand already or is, already in business, but wants to develop that same kind of thing around their business?
Interesting. I actually would never have said that one of my key strengths was community building, and yet I'm hearing it again and again. I actually, I'm very upfront about saying I don't like running what is a traditional community. I don't run traditional communities. If I have one in a course that has more than 10 people, I'll tend to have a community manager in there because I get a bit I know it's not one of my things. What I did was, it's funny, I put off starting the Facebook page for ages. I started that Facebook page less than a year ago, and I've never gone on the numbers drive for it. It's been very organic, and it's not, it's more of the loyal base, I think, hang out on the Facebook page. And that, all I did was I posted stuff and asked a lot of questions and answered people. And people came over from the Friday newsletter. Again, that's described as a community, but I think it's an odd community in that no one can contact each
Yes.
other. I'm like, I've had a few blog posts saying she runs the community. I'm like, where are they?
Yeah.
But actually, having said that, what I think has happened without me meaning to have it happen is because I've put out this content. It's all back to the, me saying my thing in my way. Because I put out this content passionately and regularly every Friday, it's built up a loyal following of people, which always surprises me. I'm like, you guys read this shit every Friday? You're amazing. They read every Friday. If I don't send an email, I get complaints. I'm like, where are you? Are you okay? Is what tends to happen. And it attracts the same type of people. So when they meet, like in a course, they tend to get on in a way that I'm like, I don't have to do anything right now.
Yeah.
You're okay. So when I'm on the Facebook page, people get on. All my course grads from this year, with no prompting from me, start up their own secret Facebook page that they all hang out on. I'm not even in there. They just do that from all different courses. If there's one person overlapping, they'll grab the next person in and they'll grab the next lawyer. I don't know how many people are in there right now. And they've all, from what I'm hearing, have become friends, go out together. So I don't think of myself as a community builder. What I do is I create the movement space.
Yeah.
That's my strength. I know I have another friend who's great at community building. She doesn't do it this way. She does it by nurturing. I do it by creating a movement, putting that, a stake in the ground, saying what people think, but often don't think they're allowed to say. And the ones who resonate love that. They love being a free-range fledgling, as I call them. They love associating with a free-range brand, and they're my promoters. I don't have to ask them. They promote, which has never been a strategy. It just happens.
Yeah.
So I think if anyone's listening and you're like, well, I don't like nurturing communities, which is a lot of people, how do I do it? I'm like, put your stake in the ground, because if you feel strongly about something and you have a voice, someone else will resonate, then someone else will resonate, and you'll start having people saying, I love what this brand is doing. I want more. And when they meet each other, that's when community forms.
But it's quite interesting because I have exactly the same thing with Women Unlimited. I'm much like you. So I don't want to have a forum, or we've got a LinkedIn group, and we do moderate that in the sense of we only allow real discussions coming in. But it's not something that we've actively go out and built. And yet people will say to me, I'm a Women Unlimited member.
I know.
Because they get my newsletter.
And I think that's the cool thing, right? We no longer, I realized this earlier this year. I was like, I've lost control of my brand.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I thought, I used to be all like, no, I will control what interactions happen here. And I'm like, I don't even know what websites are being started up referencing themselves as a free-range human. I don't know that. And that's good. I have to. It's been an exercise. If you found this as well, in actually stepping back and allowing this is like you put your baby into the world, and I'm like, free-range humans is my baby, and now it's getting to the stage of becoming a teenager, and I cannot helicopter pilot this, helicopter parent this thing, right?
But you can, exactly.
Become bigger and better when we let it go, and I think anyone watching this who's at that stage, you're like, let it do its thing and trust in it. Trust in the fact that you've put out such great content over the years, that the people who've come to you have an investment in taking care of what you've created.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that was a fascinating discussion.
Well, I like that. Really interesting.
So I'm just going back to your book again, and some of the key areas that I think are really worth looking at. We talk a little bit about the whole branding, selling piece of being a business owner, because I think this is the bit that most people find really sticky. The crunchy bit about being in business.
Yes. So what do you think the main issue is for people at the moment with that?
Sorry, say that again?
What would you think the main issue is around that?
I think it's fear. I think they feel really uncomfortable about the whole self-promotion thing, particularly in Britain. I think and my audience obviously is predominantly women. We're not used to putting our hand up and saying, I'm really great at something, or you should work with me because I'm really good at this. In fact, I think in many respects it's it's taught out of us at a very young age. You know, it's not encouraged for people to stand up and say, you know, aren't I beautiful? Aren't I clever? Aren't I this? Aren't I that? And what happens is that psychologically, I think, starts to affect us later in life when we don't ask for promotions or we don't put our hand up. I mean, there's, you know, scientific evidence to say that if you have two people, a man and a woman with the same skill set, that the man will say, oh, well, I've only got to do another 20% and I'm there. And the woman will say, oh, no, I'm not good enough because I've sort of fall 20% short. And so I think that's part of the issue. I think it's hard for people to break out of that conditioning that culturally we've got put into place.
Absolutely. You know, we're always told when we're young, you know, it's especially for women. I agree completely. You know, a good woman who keeps their head down, doesn't show off, doesn't do this and that, and
don't be bossy.
Oh my God, yeah, don't be bossy, don't blow your own trumpet.
Yeah.
And like, isn't that you're meant to do when you're an entrepreneur? Wait a second. It's a big area, Julie, I agree. I think when it comes to selling, standing out, there are so many cultural factors at play that, you know, bang up against the very things that you want to be doing.
Yeah.
I guess I'm slightly lucky in that I'm half Australian, so I had a little bit more brashness in comparison. But, you know, I'm also half English, so hey. And I used to have huge issues around standing out, very big issues around it. And things just sort of shifted after a while when I realized that the stuff that people said they got the most out of was when I thought I was doing the stuff I wasn't allowed to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I love speaking in public, and I used to think that was showing off too much. And it's when people started saying, oh, but it was your talk that got me thinking this and this. I was like, who am I serving here by saying I'm not allowed to do something that I call standing out? You know, who am I really being kind to? And the answer generally is, I'm doing that for myself. You know, I'm doing it out of my own fears. It has nothing to do with anyone else.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of like, you know, if someone doesn't like what you do, then it means someone else is going to love it.
Yeah.
So whatever. And also, I always ask yourself, whenever I have a little moment where I'm like, oh, should I say that? Should I do that? I'm like, what's that coming from? Sometimes it's like, well, you know, really, it's not really something you want to do. But often, that's appropriate. I have quite a high threshold. I'm known to make business videos wearing a hamster suit, so clearly appropriate enough level. Like, who are you serving by playing small? Who are you serving? And as women especially, I think that taking the idea away from, oh, I've got to do this to make money, I've got to do this for this, and going, who am I helping by doing this? Yeah. That's the first shift point. There'll be a lot more after that, but just ask yourself, who am I helping by pretending to be someone else? And also, how happy is that making me?
Well, exactly. What's the point?
Yeah.
So for somebody that is struggling with that whole sales thing, one of the pieces in your book is how to sell without selling your soul. How can somebody do that? How can they overcome this internal voice that's saying, oh, I'm feeling really uncomfortable?
I love this. One of my crappiest jobs when I was at university, it lasted about half a day, was telesales. And in that half day, I learned that I don't like cold selling. And also, I'm really bad at it. So that was a useful life lesson for me. And I would just say that I think that dodgy car salesmen have messed it up for the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know, you go in there and you think of selling and you think of that person who's trying to push something on you that you don't want and you can't get away from them and you feel guilty. And I just ask people to sort of acknowledge that you are not playing that role. If you don't want to do cold calling, I certainly hope you're not doing it. Its effectiveness rate is not great, so we're not asking you to do that. What I'd encourage you to do is to build up people's loyalty, as you know, Julie and I have been talking about here, to the point where people already want to engage with you. They want to buy from you. And the next step is going over that barrier. So I think the people you're referring to, Julie, are the ones who are at that stage where you're like, but I have a lot of people interested, but they don't seem to buy. And there's a lot of people I know in that space. And when I work with them, I get them to really shift how they're thinking about the sales process. And in the book, there are 4 E's of selling without selling your soul. I won't go into them, but the general idea is to shift away from the idea that selling is something that you push onto someone else and that they have to do you a favor. That isn't sustainable. You will not continue like that unless you love it, in which case you probably won't be watching this video anyway. So instead, look at how can you raise people's, loyalty and awareness of what you do so that they want to work with you. And then when it comes to the crunch, where you have to close the deal, I ask you to re-engage with the first E, which I'll just do that E, and that is your enthusiasm. So instead of saying, oh, well, I've gone from, or this person that I've developed this great relationship with, I can't possibly turn into a sales mode. I can't possibly do that. Just say, what if this was someone else's product? What would you say if this was, you're talking to a friend and this was a thing you'd seen and you're like, oh God, you need this. Wow, this is so exciting. How would you say it? What if you took yourself out of the picture for a moment? Because, I don't think that anyone watching this doesn't believe in their product or service to the point they don't think anyone should buy it, right?
Yeah. Or at least I hope not.
If you do, that might be the problem. Yeah, right? No. So I'm like, when this person walks away and doesn't buy, and you probably have experience of that happening, what will you go home and sort of like bitch to your partner about? Be like, oh my God, that person didn't buy, and now look what's going to happen, and they missed out on this. And that genuine pull that we've all had, and we're like, they made the wrong decision. I am so frustrated about that. What would you say to them? And why can't you say it now? And that's what shifted for me. I started with email and I just changed. I don't do these anymore. I don't really close sales. I do it like in a much more big picture way. But when I started realizing I could email people back when they said things like, well, that thing sounds really interesting, but right now I'm really short of money this month and blah, blah. And I would just think, what am I going to think about this person? And I'll just say, and I'd say it with, you have to come with integrity and it has to come, otherwise you'll come across horribly. My sort of conversion rate from those emails is close to 100%. And all it shifted was I didn't learn any techniques. I just started saying what I wanted to say to them. And I'd be like, I completely respect what you've said. I just want to point out, and I could be wrong here, that. And I just say what my gut instinct said. And it often would be something like, how much, are they valuing themselves? How much are they spending on other things? And I just say those things based on every interaction I'd had with them to that point. So I'd go back through the emails and I'd start noticing patterns. And it's a very small scale way to start. So I'm not talking about doing this, to close, have a web page and close a sales page online, which is what I do now. But if you're in that stage and you're like, these people aren't closing, go back and read their words more carefully. People, I've had clients send me emails that they say, oh, I wrote, this person was so interested, here's what they sent me and here's what I sent back, and why didn't they buy? And I'm like, they didn't buy often because you missed what they were really buying. So if they're buying a photography session and you just reply about that photography session and nothing else, you're going to lose the deal. But when you realize that what is in the email is that they had a crossover friend with you, that they love the photos you did for that friend, that they have this daughter like this, and you reference that and you speak to the fact that you can hear underneath that is they want something absolutely beautiful, an amazing experience that they will be proud of, to have their 3-year-old daughter or whatever, and you can engage with those points. That's when things change. So notice what people are saying, notice what they're not saying, notice what they're really buying, and if they don't buy, go back in there. Decide where it's more important to be liked or it's more important to make a difference to people. And that to me is kind of, generally I'm like, I'd rather make a difference to people. I don't do it to be liked. And in the process, I think you will get liked by more people.
Well, it's part of that authenticity thing, isn't it? I mean, we think that if we try and sell to people, they're not going to like us. But the reality is, that's actually not really what comes into it. They won't like you if they feel that that's the reason you want to get to know them. But if you come at it from the heart and you're being honest about in your assessment of what you think you can deliver. But I really loved the tip of what would you say if this was your best friend's product? Because actually that just completely changes the dynamic about how you talk about it and the level of enthusiasm that you put into it. And by separating yourself from the the you, taking your ego out of it. I think that's where the real magic can happen.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because we think this is about ego. We're like, I can't do that. That has too much ego. And you're like, there's more ego to allow someone else to not have the help or the product.
Yeah.
Because you're feeling no. That's where the ego lies, and that's a real mind shift. So anyone watching who's had this, just experiment. Next time this happens, do that. Go, what would I do if I was talking to a friend? This is a friend's product, and what would I, if that doesn't work, what would I really want to say to this person? And be prepared to lose the sale, by the way.
Yeah.
That's key. I am prepared to lose any sale and, refund people.
Yeah.
I'm always ready. If you're not, you're desperate, you're clingy, and that's the used car sales.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a brilliant note to finish on. For those that are watching, this is going to come out on Friday, December 7th? Yay, which is your pre-launch day for your book. Do you want to tell us very quickly about that?
Yes, the book is pre-launching. She's giving birth, and she is. What that means is she'll be available to pre-order, and people who pre-order on Friday will get the book landing on their doorstep in the very first days of the new year, which is really exciting. So just in time for that, putting those New Year's resolutions into place. And you'll also get a bunch of bonuses as a thank you for buying on that pre-launch day. So we have 24 hours, so we'll run over to Saturday. We'll have 24 hours from Friday, so when you see this, to get in there. So go to beafreerangehuman.com. The website will be all like linked up to being all about getting the book that day. So go there and, grab your copy. And if you're watching this after then, you can still get a copy, obviously. Go back to beafreerangehuman.com and get yourself a free chapter. But if you've watched this in time, I would encourage you, because I've put a bunch of live bonuses, and I haven't done that thing where you go and grab like free shit from all over the web and stick it together. I've actually been like, I'd rather people it's like Christmas presents. Christmas presents and a bunch of really bad half cosmetics. Some really like hand-chosen stuff for people who buy, and I genuinely hope it will help you out.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Brilliant time with you today, and I look forward to reading the book completely.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
A good one.
Bye.
Bye.